This is a horrific universe. Countries with hot Latinas. All right, yeah, definitely give this guy the death penalty. So this is known as alternative history. It's like a double negative. Alternative history is a world where, man, how do I phrase this? The maker of this map exists in the alternative reality where the US didn't successfully become a new country in 1776. The person that made this map lives in the reality that the uprising was crushed, and he still lives in a US controlled British Empire. And this is him imagining what the US would have looked like if we won the American Revolution in 1776. So that's why things are not perfect here. That is why things look so odd. What's interesting is this fictional author still believes there's going to be a Louisiana Purchase and a Manifest Destiny, which makes sense. The problem is we have to imagine what this British-controlled USA would have looked like if 1776 was not successful on our side. I mean, considering that in our universe, the British still controlled Canada, and they did make Canada do their own Manifest Destiny, getting over to the Pacific, then, okay, I guess that's safe to say the US, still under the Crown's control, would have done the same thing. Interestingly, there's probably bits and pieces from his world that we're seeing relayed on this map. He just doesn't know a difference. Like, obviously in a world where both Canada and, well, you know what's funny is this place isn't even called Canada Borealia. That sounds like something from Agartha. In a world where obviously the British control the Canadians and the Americans, there would be no need to have like a perfectly straight line. Like, I mean, they're all under the same empire. Does it really matter? The person in this universe successfully predicts that the US would take Spanish Florida, because remember, Florida used to be a part of the Spanish Empire. They successfully predict also that we were able to take Texas into the Union, and also probably beat out Mexico in a war. Now, that could be because the British Empire probably beats Mexico in a war in his reality. Hawaii is probably just a British colony in his universe. What happens to Alaska in his universe? Because he's predicting successfully that America would purchase Alaska from the Russians. I'm trying to figure out why the Gulf of Mexico would be called the Gulf of Florida here, though. He assumes all of this would be American too, because, I mean, that does make sense. This is only supposed to go up to Maine. This is actually called New Ireland. It kind of feels like this author here was able to successfully predict too many accurate things. Little sus. Is this guy a time traveler? He's got to have access to like a DeLorean or something. This map is from the perspective of a world where the American Revolution failed, theorizing on how the stillborn Union could have turned out. So we've got territorial evolution, 1776, the beginning of the Revolution, 1777, Articles of Federation, 1780, ratified independence from the UK. He predicts wrongly that George Washington declares himself as the absolute ruler, but correctly that we purchase French Louisiana, and that we take Texas and northern Mexico. Oh, this is interesting. They're calling it the UPA. That's just abbreviated the uprising of America, because it wouldn't really be, that's probably how it would be in the history books. Oh, wait, actually it says up here, United Provinces of America. Well, yeah, the name would be contentious. You wouldn't know what the name would be because it lost. The person from this reality falsely predicts that there would be an Anglo-American war in 1843, which there was another war between us, but it was in 1812, and he predicts a resounding victory, and the UK is forced to cede Ontario and this area of Canada, Trans-Laurentia. That's a cool name. There is in fact a civil war, and he gets some of the partially the dates right, but he predicts that there is a civil war because of the death of a dictator, Millard Washington. So one of his great-great-grandfathers or grandsons of George Washington. Also keep in mind that St. Louis is the capital of this uprising of America, or the, what do you call it, United Provinces of America, because it would make sense that you would put the capital somewhere more in the center of the country. I feel like this kind of gives us a sign of when this fictional creator here exists in his own universe. Like, maybe he doesn't exist in 2025. He might think this is what our universe would look like in the present day, in our present day, 2025, but he himself might have written this, I don't know, in the 1900s early. That seems to be the case because we're not given a breakdown of what's happened in the last century. So if he's writing this in the early 1900s, then yeah, everyone thought St. Louis was going to be the next big thing. I mean, we had a damn World's Fair in St. Louis. It was back in 1904 where we built a whole bunch of these crazy looking buildings to, well, emulate, I don't even know, but this is certainly not what St. Louis looks like anymore, sadly. Yeah, see, the last update to these events is 1910. So yeah, the guy that made the map might be from like 1910-ish, right after that St. Louis World's Fair. I like the detail of the original 13 colonies keeping behind the 1763 proclamation line. Basically, this line, what the 13 colonies used to look like before they became independent and grew a little bit. To continue on, doesn't make sense for an independent America to respect it, but somehow from a loyalist timeline might not consider that and take those borders for granted. Yeah, that is a very smart little small detail. Great map, only complaint that Idaho should have a different name since in real life, a random American politician nation in the 1860s just made it up and claimed it was indigenous name for the region. That's hilarious. Yeah, so a fictional person from an alternative timeline wouldn't have known that. What does this acronym mean again? I never knew. Oh, if I recall correctly. Damn, I never knew that once. I don't know what I thought that was. Can we try some realism next time? I know, this is pretty outlandish. The British would have never let the Yanks off the hook for even 10 years. A bunch of comments being obviously kind of funny about the ridiculousness of all this. America would never get its independence. Great map and scenario, although I can't help but notice how unrealistic it is that a nation that fought off imperialists would then start its own version of imperialism and colonization. Who would ever think that could happen? There would never be an American empire. That's crazy. What's interesting about the concept of alternative history is it's not new. We're covering it right now, but someone as crazy as Winston Churchill made his own alternative history. Churchill wrote an essay from a viewpoint of a historian in a world where the Confederate Army won the Battle of Gettysburg and then therefore the rest of the U.S. Civil War. Here's another post of the author breaking the fourth wall, if you will. The Americas here have been clearly vandalized, and this kid needs to be punished severely. But in the background, as you can see, this is not any normal world map that we're used to, at least not in North and South America. We're focusing on the vandalization of things, but in reality, I'm actually focusing on the countries behind all the vandalization. Vandalization? My bad. Oh, that damn S. I cannot escape this S for my entire life. It has controlled me. So the kid vandalizes what in this universe is known as Canadian Alaska. But he thinks it's communist. Russia was stupid enough to give, this to the English. So in this universe, the kid is mocking the fact that the Russians sold the British Empire Alaska, which ultimately led to it being Canada. Sorry, It's a very, very powerful Canada in this universe because they also have Washington and Oregon and Idaho. The kid vandalizes a part of Quebec, just giving it the French flag, I think. They would love that, wouldn't they? This juvenile delinquent also apparently likes Green Day, possibly. Yeah, that's like what is that album? I think we've just discovered that this alternative reality is clearly coming from the year like 2000, because this is just like references that old people would know, like me. The vandalization occurred probably in like 2005-ish. Anyways, he says that it needs more green, but Greenland in this universe is still known as Denmark territory. I can't even read this. Desser independence. Okay, so Scotland is not independent, but look at this. Northern Ireland is not a part of the rest of the UK. So Ireland got their whole island back. The meme Lisenberg still exists in this universe. It's very easy to troll Americans by just asking them what country this is. It's obviously Lisenberg, guys. Even I know that. Well, clearly they still got Family Guy in this universe, even though the United States does not look very powerful. And is Washington... What? Yeah, sorry, does The Simpsons take place in Wichita City in this universe? Indiana Jones is still a thing, so this is post the 1980s. There's still a Disney World in Florida, clearly. Mormons are here in Utah. However, this is a Utah controlled by Mexico. What could have been? Oh, he wanted to see a North. Maybe there was a civil war. Maybe the South rose up here in Mexico too, since Mexico remained powerful. Obviously, Texas still got eaten up by the U.S. though. Rich AF. This is Los Angeles, Mexico. I mean, let's be real. This is an interesting concept. If Mexico existed this big, like they used to, before the Americans got all this territory up here, if Mexico held on to all this land for the last 2 centuries, there would be a really, really big divide between the South and the North. This probably would be very rich territory. And as we know in our universe, the southern parts of Mexico, like this region, very, very poor. Can't really read some of this. Is this say USA? SpongeBob lives in Puerto Rico? This is a horrific universe. There's a banana country, like a small Chile. I don't know why the Netherlands got more territory in Colombia. Also, Venezuela doesn't even exist. Countries with hot Latinas. All right, yeah, definitely give this guy the death penalty. Specifically, not this part of Uruguay is a part of that circle. Han. Oh, is this like a French spot area? Is this French Argentina or something? Rightfully Chilean. That's the Falkland Islands. So the British don't have that in this universe either. North and South Peru. South Peru labeled as best Peru. Trying to think what could have happened where only the hot Latinas are coming from South America. What happened? Basically just all the women get wiped out in all the other parts of our universe called Latin America. It's the only thing I can think of. Oh, the French don't have French Guyana, so maybe in this universe they made this. Is that the reason for the Han? French Guyana exists in our world's modern day Argentina. It's a very interesting map. I like this. One thing's for sure, the kid that did the vandalization needs to be put in a correctional facility. He's not fit for society. I even tried to tell the teacher, but he was too busy teaching social studies. Fake map, hot Latina circle doesn't include Colombia and Brazil. That's what everyone is talking about in this universe. So what if Daddy Stalin and the Soviet Union pulled a little Uno reverse card on the skinny mustache man? Operation what? This is called Operation Groza. This was a strategic offensive launched by the Soviet Union on June 22nd, 1941 to invade German-controlled territories in Eastern Europe. The primary objective was a preemptive strike against Germany, specifically following the military disarray followed by the unexpected death of Adolf Hitler. Also, in this universe, there's chaos because I guess maybe they might have assassinated him. Remember, there were so many attempts to take that dude out. This is fascinating. So the reason why Germany didn't go after the Soviet Union was because, well, the Austrian painter, he's no more. So there was probably chaos in the Axis, including Benito Mussolini. I wonder how he would feel about this whole situation. They actually didn't even move through Yugoslavia. Did you even, well, in this universe, Italy didn't even get Albania. And then they didn't declare war on Greece, I'm assuming. They still have Denmark. They still have Norway. You can kind of see the little dip up here. The big question is that everyone's debating, would Stalin actually do this? In this theoretical universe, he would invade on the same day the Germans invaded the Soviet Union in our timeline. I'm not saying that Stalin wouldn't do this if he could. If he had the means to, well, probably. This dude was absolutely insane. Remember that there was a supposed non-aggression pact between the Germans and the Soviet Union. However, Stalin did not trust Adolf at all, and he didn't trust the Germans. He would have had to mobilize so much. My biggest thing is that the Soviet Union was not ready, clearly, in 1941 to fight the Germans. I mean, the Germans pushed way deep inside of Soviet territory. They needed a couple years to build up there. So I'm trying to think, I mean, maybe if the Germans were in complete chaos, then maybe the Soviets could have rolled in with the small amount of divisions and tanks they actually had. This is assuming they wouldn't be getting any support from the Americans, though, and the British. Or maybe they are. I don't know. London obviously has not collapsed. There probably was a huge air raid, a battle for London even. If they striked fast enough, this World War II would probably lead to an entire communist continental Europe. I mean, they'd probably get all the way to France. I'm not sure. I don't think the Americans are in the war yet. The Pacific still played out the exact same. Then the Americans would not be in the war until December 1941. Looks like they are still fighting the Finns up here in the continuation war. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a scenario where the Soviets can actually do this successfully in 1941. I just feel like that might be too early for them, even if the Germans were in complete disarray like this. It's so cursed seeing the Soviet Union in green. Oh, so he is oofed in 1941 January. That gives him 6 months. No, there's no way. I was gonna say, like, maybe if he died in like mid 1940, then all right, Stalin had 1 year to prepare. He knew what he was going to do. In this timeline, this is what I was saying. Britain would have been given a difficult choice since Pearl Harbor hasn't happened yet, because in the eyes of Britain, the only thing worse than the no-no Germans dominating Europe is the Soviets dominating Europe. God help post-war peace negotiations in this timeline, that's for sure. The author here predicts that the Germans would eventually stop their fighting, their infighting, and unite to defeat the Soviets. But in that thought process, they would have to give a lot of peace negotiations and concessions to the British, because, I mean, that makes sense. The Germans just did not want the Soviets to ever control their stuff. A lot of Germans ran to the Allies, the British and Americans, to surrender, not the Soviet side. I do think they would probably unite, just like China united against Japan briefly during World War II. Talk about absolutely ridiculous scenarios, though. This is an alternative reality where the largest ethnic group in modern-day China succeed. They secede. The Civil War. Civil War happens again. That's not unrealistic. That's just what happens in China, literally all the time. However, I just don't see the Han Republic revolting away from the People's Republic of China. This would be known as the Han-Chinese War of Independence. The early stages of the war, this is basically the first 2 months. First of all, we need to talk about this. China is 90% Han ethnicity. This side would absolutely dominate. It wouldn't even be close. Also, considering where the Han actually live, that's where, like, all the economic power out of China comes from in general, too. So they'd have all the industry, all the people, all the power. It would not go very well for Xi Jinping. I'm assuming he's the one that's leading the People's Republic of China still, which is now known as the Central People's Government. Also, they put their headquarters in Tibet. How ironic is that? It's interesting because I can see the minority groups, the different minority groups all around modern-day China. They probably would not want to be a part of a Han region. I mean, whenever China does break apart, there's always so many little warlords that pop up, all these different factions from different sides. If I'm a Uyghur, then I'm definitely not going to want to be part of the Han ethnic society or the Han Republic. I don't know if I'd be fighting for this China, though, but I would not necessarily want to be dominated by the 91% of people that live thousands of miles away from me. More like hundreds of miles, something like that. Mongolia has become an autonomous region. I do like this small reference to the Chinese war flag. This is apparently the Chinese war flag if they were to ever go to war. The PLA military administration. I mean, it would only be interesting to see, I guess, if the People's Republic of China still had all their military infrastructure on this side. Maybe. That's still so many people to have to beat back, though. Why would Taiwan be fighting for the People's Republic of China, though? That's what is this an alternative reality where they got that and then the Civil War happened? I mean, I don't know. Imagine North Korea being the safest place to go. Thousands of Han ethnicity escaping to North Korea. What? I would assume the Americans would definitely be here because, of course, the Americans and maybe just all of the West would be here. They probably would be supporting the Han Republic more than likely. Anything over communism, maybe that Cold War policy will still hold up true. How did the CCP piss the overwhelming ethnic majority off? That's what I'm wondering. Maybe the government just randomly stopped being majority Han too? This is like Russia declaring independence from the USSR, yeah. Or English Declaration of Independence from the UK and Spanish Declaration of Independence from Spain. I will say it's not completely unheard of that a smaller ethnic group inside of an overall massive country takes control of the majority of power. Like, that kind of happens quite frequently in history, in world history. I don't know how it would happen in the PRC, but I'm just saying that we've seen minority groups take control like 100% of power, and then of course the bigger majority group is like, hell no, we're not doing this. The author made this here because we've seen enough of the Chinese balkanization maps, so we wanted to see a little bit different, with larger ethnicity becoming obviously independent after decades of minority rule, affirmative action, and population control targeting said group. Oh yeah, keep in mind that with Taiwan, China still claims that it's their territory, even if obviously the world and Taiwan doesn't see it like that. If you go to China and you see maps, you'll see maps everywhere that include the Taiwanese island, a part of their control. So it's possible that island still is not moved. Oh my god, my social credit score, it is ruined! DruuuWu Labubu, Drew's AI girlfriend, LuxembourgLover, LoreTrack, William, never change Drew unless you want to, Nolan, AlexandertheTerrible, NordTyrol, Miglu the Goat, KingBearHaze, Connor Pavlik, Fredrik Tibblin, and Tambre. To all my Patreon subscribers this month, thank you. If you want your name here, check the description down below.